You're live. Go ahead.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Hope everybody enjoyed that lengthy break. We're now going to be joined by Navah Hopkins. Will be talking to us about using first-party data and automation to build a perfect ad audience. Hello,
Well,
Navah. Welcome.
hello.
Thank you. Really looking forward to your presentation. This should be very interesting.
Thank you. And I realize before we even get started, this is a PPC session or PPC adjacent session in an SEO talk. So I fully understand the urge to run out the door, skip this session. I encourage you not to, because a lot of the things that paid media folks are going to need to do very much are going to require partnership with SEOs. So as we think about how PPC and SEO works together, yes, this is very much about building that first party data audience, but it's also about having that empathy of what are the PPCs dealing with so that we can together work to help our brand succeed. So without any further ado, we're going to dive right into our session. A little bit about me. I'm the VP of Strategic Marketing over at Adzuma. I've had the pleasure of working in SaaS companies in the PPC space. I've worked in agency. I've gotten to work across thousands of SMB brands and empowering the agencies who serve them. I am the Ask the PPC for Search Engine Journal, one of the founding board members of the Paid Search Association, SEMrush instructor, and I'm very grateful and humbled to have been nominated several years in a row as a top 25 PPC. All of this is to say is that I know enough to know that none of us know anything, but I can at least share with you some of the trends I've seen with the forest, as well as some of the very specific action items that you can apply to your specific trees. So with that said, the core of today is going to be about understanding first-party audiences, what they are, why they matter, message mapping, so actually making those audiences profitable, and then how we can win with first-party data. I will say, for those of you who haven't heard me speak before or just don't know me at all, I am an avid Star Wars fan. I'm an avid gamer. I am a pet mom of 2 adorable rescue pups. I have zero apologies for how much they may or may not be in this presentation. Without any further ado, let's dive in. So first-party data, just so that folks have a basic definition, is any data that a user has consented to you having. Now, that can mean their behaviors on site, especially if you have your global site tag applied. It can be emails that they've consented to have you use for very specific uses that you've requested that permission. It can be phone numbers. It can be anything that you have built a consensual conversation with the user and that you own. Third-party data is anything else. So that can be placements on sites where you're not the one that specifically brokered that relationship with that first-party data onto that site. Think remarketing off of website visitors. It can be buying an email list because not only are those a waste of space, they are also not a consensual conversation with those users. So basically anything that you don't own. And the reason why we care is because Google, Facebook, all of the major ad platforms and the ways that we rank are shifting away from allowing third party to own the conversation and putting it much more into first party. And what's really fascinating is that even with all the changes with Flock, we'll see where that goes, with Parakeet on the Microsoft side, with iOS 14.5 and 15 on the Facebook side. First-party data is the one constant that all the ad platforms have said, yes, we will continue to build towards this. Yes, we will continue to support it. And on the SEO side, this is where you're going to get to shine because a lot of PPCs are going to have to start building their first-party data plans if they haven't already. So think site migrations, how many domains fit within a first-party data set. So all of this is to say, first-party data is crucial. It needs to be part of your marketing plan. And from a technical standpoint, you want to make sure that you've set up your domain structure correctly. So as we're thinking about building our audience, it's also important to note that keywords are just really no longer the bread and butter of search marketing PPC really in general. Yes, you still bid on keywords. Yes, they still will somewhat match to queries, but far more important, are audiences with just slightly behind our creatives. And what's really interesting about that is that a good creative can sometimes overcome the shortcomings of lack of targeting or even keywords not properly matching. But audiences far and away control our power. And what's really interesting, again, also is how like not even close it was between keywords and creative and audiences. Like we just have moved past keywords as that main staple. And what's also really interesting about this is that the audiences that you control are going to have better performance on a cost per acquisition standpoint than audiences that you don't control. So just so that we level set, because I very much get we're in an SEO conference. So when we're looking at in-market audience, the purple, that is when Google, Microsoft, Facebook have said, hey, you know what? This person has displayed interest in this product or service. They are in market for it. In-market audiences cycle somewhere between 7 to 14 days, depending on the service. Think you're searching for a house. Someone might target you in market to sell you insurance. That's basically the use case. Custom affinity or affinity audiences are someone like me who's interested in pets. I'm a pet lover. That's affinity. When you're thinking about website visitors, that's fairly straightforward. Going to the website, you're a website visitor. Customer list are going to be those emails or phone numbers. Similar audiences are based off of those customer lists and website visitors. And then custom intent is someone who has shared that they are interested in a thing, but not necessarily a purchase intent. So those are really powerful for websites. Those are really powerful for specific search terms. So the reason why I begin with this one, and I have several data sets looking at all these audiences, is that not only is not using an audience like a complete sucker punch to your CPA, the website or the targeting audience that you've built that consensual conversation, that customer list, is demonstratively cheaper than website visitors. And that makes sense because when you are looking at website visitors, you're kind of nagging them. You're nagging them along the journey. Whereas when it's someone who has consented to that conversation, they're bought into having that profitable exchange with you. So all that is to say, use audiences. Don't deal with that 75% increase in cost per acquisition that comes from not using an audience. Facebook lookalike audiences are also really powerful. Those of you that are using Facebook audiences are likely have seen some of the spikes that have come from iOS 14.5, where not all of your audiences are still registering. So long as you have synced through first-party data, those lists are still usable. It's when you start using the website visitors and you start using the lookalikes off of maybe dubiously captured audience types that you're going to see that impact. But again, just using that similar audience against, say, just interest targeting, massive improvement in performance. So all of this leads to my first major kind of takeaway for you. Don't be afraid to ask for first-party data, whether it's an email, whether it's a phone number. Don't shy away from collecting that information on site, even if you think it might lead to a slight decrease in sales or on that initial conversion for say an e-commerce purchase. This study is based off of Justino data, looking at 3 billion website sessions. And what was really interesting is that having the form increase the conversion rate, even though it's slightly decreased the engagement rate. So it's in the long run, you will make more money so long as you are building that first party data audience. So when we're thinking about intent and when we're thinking about targeting, debating, because we might not necessarily be able to qualify for the customer list audiences, you do need to spend at least $50,000 lifetime to use them on Google and on Microsoft. We want to think about who our people are and why they want what they want. And what's really interesting is that 95% are driven by the subconscious, or purchasing decisions are driven by subconscious instead of facts. And so we want to factor that into how we build our personas and how we think about our audiences. So I think about this as like the three virtuous pillars of profit. The first is power. Are you talking to the boss? Are you talking to a subordinate who's going to convince the boss to buy it for them to increase their efficiency? Are you selling to the main household income earner? Or are you selling to the kid or the spouse who's going to make the main household income earner's life terrible until they give in to their demands? So you want to just think about that messaging. You also think about motivation. Is this a want? Is this a need? Is this something that, like, electric? I cannot live without electric because I am a spoiled person that lives in a city. I have internet needs. I need electric. Whereas, do I necessarily need my super amazing gaming tower? Probably I don't need it, but I want it, and it's important enough to me for all of my various interests that I have it. And similarly with frequency. Is this something that's a one and done purchase? Is this something that we can nurture a kind of a lifetime of value? So you just want to think about how all of these things will factor into your buyer persona and what audiences will be the best suited to capture them and the best messaging to capture them. The other thing I strongly encourage you to think about is what their buying journey looks like. One of the worst pitfalls I see folks make is actually starting with paid search. Paid search is expensive. You're paying for the fact that the interest, the intent is already there. Depending on who you are, depending on your budget, it might make a lot more sense for you to start with video or to start with display or to do a blitz campaign with Facebook and Instagram. It's also really important to note that all of these different channels have different learning mechanisms. So if you need something quick and you need to kind of stand up interest quickly, paid search is really not the best bet. You actually would want to go with more of a display, a YouTube, a Facebook, and Instagram. Vice versa, if you need something that's kind of sustainable, paid search is amazing. Like you can really benefit off of the historical data. So we also want to think about why we are going to be the best answer to their need. And what I actually found really fascinating when I did this study is that in-market actually outperformed both the data sets that we technically control, i.e. Website visitor and customer list. To no one's surprise, no market or no audience did poorly. But what I found really interesting is that actually outperformed custom affinity. So this is where, again, as you think about your creative, you can slightly overcome that lack of audience. But if you use the wrong audience, you will tank your campaigns. And in terms of whether they're going to buy again, 53% of senior finance executives say that at least 40% of their revenue is reoccurring. So if you can't build in a direct recurring purchase, think at least about how you can build a referral program to get your one and done customers back into the fold. So all of these questions, all of these data points are going to help us craft creative experiences and that build business revenue, but also trust. It's about consensual conversations. So when we're thinking about the creative for one, but not necessarily working for another, similar audiences, website visitors, customer list, hands down the winners, like not even a contest. What I again will point out though, is that not using an audience outperformed using an audience poorly, i.e. custom affinity and the custom intent. So just be really mindful when you're thinking about your creative. We all like to think that we're the best copywrites. We all like to think that like, oh, we can do the best ads. If you are not good at ad copy, it is okay. Ad platforms will help you. And their ads are not actually that bad, depending on what you're putting in its place. But if you are going to use your own creative, you want to make sure that you're message mapping appropriately. 74% of marketers don't message map. So to use The Simpsons, if you sell to the crazy cat lady cat food, you'll be happy and you'll make money. If you, however, lump in dog food, cat food, bird food into the same ad group targeting pet food and expect her to buy from you, you will be in for a very rude awakening and not make any money. So a couple of just other things to think about. There's about a 202% increase in conversion rate if you echo the language on your landing page from your ad copy, and that makes a lot of sense. One of Quality Score's key components is keyword to add to landing page relevancy. So how much do your keywords inform the promise you're making in your ad, and how much does your landing page deliver on that? So it's not just a mechanic within the ad platform. It actually translates into actual purchasing behavior. And then also 82% of folks will read a review before they buy. So we want to make sure that we're building in lots of testimonials. An on-site CRO can help, whether it's a pop-up to collect that first-party data, whether it's upsell offers, whether it's something just letting people know about a promotion. Like there are ways to grease the wheels. And again, that same Just You Know study, when we look at engaged folks, people that actually engaged with some degree of CRO, monumental increase in conversion rate. So it's really just about how much are you willing to leave money on the table versus take a few small steps to improve performance. So we're going to go through a couple of examples of on-site CRO. The first is if it's early in the buyer journey, don't ask for a lot. Ask for an email. You will notice that this is actually a two-step on-site CRO experience. You want to get the user in the habit of saying yes. The more they're used to saying yes, the more likely they are to say yes to actually making the purchase. This particular pop-up had about an 11% engagement rate and a 27% conversion rate, i.e., we made money on 27% of the folks that were exposed to it. And if they're just not ready, that's okay. A lot of folks shy away from exit pop-ups and exit offers. It's absolutely okay to ask for the email, even if they're going to leave. But I will actually point out that a lot of folks fall into this trap of saying "your" when someone's already on the landing page. If someone is on the search result page or on some other experience, say "your." It's fine. But the moment they've come to your brand, everything needs to switch to "my." You want to plant that seed that the things on your site, the services you offer, are already theirs. They just haven't paid for it yet. And so they want to claim their, i.e., my offer, my discount, my shopping cart, what have you. And again, you want to instill that FOMO with something of a countdown. And just to reiterate on you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Yes, this engagement was low. However, you'll notice that it actually had a better conversion rate than that early kind of initial ask for the email. So do not be afraid to use on-site CRO when it comes to the exit, just like you don't want to be afraid to use it when someone first arrives. One quick pointer on on-site CRO. I know we all are worried about CLS. Google has outright said that we have 5 seconds from render for it to be calculated. So long as your on-site CRO experience comes to fruition and comes to bear, at least 5 seconds, ideally 8 to 10 seconds after the page has loaded, you're fine. It's when you have it hit on load or you have multiple hit. That's when not only will Google get mad at you, but users will get mad at you and they'll bounce. So definitely do not be afraid from both a user experience standpoint and from a technical standpoint. And I also will point out you don't always need to kind of give away the farm. It is very okay to help people understand that they are now VIPs by giving you that first-party data. They are consenting to a VIP experience that you're going to provide simply because they've given you that information. And what's interesting is that, yes, the engagement rate's lower, the conversion rate's lower, like all of that, but that pop-up was able to drive 4,177 emails, which meant that we had a list that we could target. To do a purely targeted list with customer lists, you need at least 1,000 people. So this more than delivered. It's also important to note that desktop way outperformed mobile in terms of engagement. So when you're thinking about where do you put these kind of non-giveaway offers, desktop is definitely the best home for those. So we've talked a lot about building that audience. Now let's talk about actually mapping the audience to the creative. And ads and landing pages are going to play equal but different roles here. So when it comes to ads, we want to really think about how well are we in creating a desirable experience. So one of my favorite B2B ads of all time is actually that ZipRecruiter ad. because it plays off of the clock idea of the 10 and the 12 smiling, or the 10 and the the 10 and the 11 smiling. The other thing that's really interesting about it is that the hands point directly down to the call to action. So yes, you get more information, but that picture is super eye-catching. It drives the user right down to that call to action, super powerful. I also will point out that display ad has a button to inspire engagement. If you are wanting the person to click, build a button into your creative. If you don't care, don't worry about it. That there is value in those types of ads as well. I also will point out on that video ad, the Privacy That's iPhone. This is one of my hands down favorite campaigns ever. I love this campaign. I don't use Apple products at all. So I don't know whether you could say it works, but one of the reasons why I love it so much is that the idea that it's doing is not just giving you privacy, it makes it very easy for you, the user, to project yourself onto that person. So where other ads, you might kind of run the risk of demographics not quite being right, or the personality is not quite right. Here, I can easily project anybody right onto that, and it works. And then again, with text ads, you just want to be mindful about how much you're using calls to action and what spots. Now that responsive search ads are going to be the main champions, you still can kind of create expanded text ads. I'm not going to get into that in depth now. If there's questions about that, happy to take it in the Q&A. But you just want to be mindful about how you're positioning your calls to actions. And on the subject of calls to actions, what's really interesting is that soft selling actually does better than necessarily hitting people over the head. So the main takeaway from this that looked at just shy of 51,000 ads is that if you can position things as learning instead of trying or demoing, you'll do great. And if you can be transparent about price, you'll also do great. Where folks get frustrated, and understandably so, is if you do not actually share the exact pricing with folks. And now landing pages are salespeople. If your landing page isn't closing the deal, there's something amiss. This landing page actually does a great job for a few reasons. Number one, it builds accessibility right into the brand. It's that easy line there. There's great authoritative symbols where they've been seen. I actually really like that the CRO efforts are in sans serif, which is easier to read, even though the brand is in serif font. And then you also have a really good privacy engagement post. So lots of good things about this landing page. So this has all been a lot of theory. Now I'm actually going to share with you a very personal experience, how I was targeted and how I was sold to. And the reason you see my puppies, you see a gaming bar in Melbourne, Terry Pratchett, Neil Gaiman, Good Omens. It's fantastic. Camelot, one of my absolute favorite bands. And then also State of Search. I was very lucky to speak on a panel of just women in the industry. We're all multifaceted people, and how you target and where you target, depending on what you are, is going to influence the success. So I'm going to share with you the story about how Lumi, who is not a client, I am just a customer, was able to acquire my business. So it actually began on YouTube. 80% of shoppers who watch a YouTube video end up buying. And what I loved about this ad is that it actually was positioned in a way where it could very easily play into my interests. Like it wasn't me watching, say, a makeup tutorial where it was kind of hitting you over the head with the industry. It was very subtly woven into my natural experiences. So I was curious. I clicked on the ad, and I was taken to an Amazon page, and I was so upset because I don't want to give Jeff Bezos money. I want to give Lumi money, but I was able to see it had good reviews. I happen to love lavender. It was a great product. The price was kind of expensive for me. But again, I loved the information, but I was like, I'm not so hot on this being Amazon. So I bounced, and I was one of the 72% of abandoned shopping carts. Thankfully, they followed up. I actually got hit on Facebook with this ad. Really good ad, shows the product. But it also showed its personality. It wasn't afraid, and it owns as its brand. It's not afraid to use actual biological terms. And some of their ads are even more playful. and it sent me to a landing page that showed me those exact products. I will also call out that it put the user down below, so I wouldn't necessarily be put off or excited. It would be neutral in terms of the demographic of the user. And again, really powerful, just product focused ad. So when it came to the landing page on desktop, they also had a really good call to action. And in terms of emails, just an interesting stat, 49% of folks would like to receive emails from brands that they enjoy so long as there's use. So if you can build a powerful email campaign, a powerful way to communicate with your customers, you can nurture a lot of value. So in terms of the purchasing experience with Lumi, you'll notice that they actually told me that I unlocked free shipping, which is fantastic. I was going to unlock it regardless because I was going for a bundle. This also ended up being about $5 cheaper than Amazon. And they're going to get to keep more of the money because I'm buying it directly from them as opposed to Amazon, which is fantastic on their part. You'll also notice that they show it as a discounted price. So I'm being told that this normally actually would have been more expensive here, but I'm getting it as a discount. And I get to feel that much better about my purchase. So all of this is great. Now, had Lumi had a bad experience, I would be making fun of them, but I wouldn't. 60% of folks are less likely to buy. Lumi was great on mobile. So instead, I'm going to tell you the story about how I still have not purchased a PS5. It's very, very sad. I tried buying it from Target. I tried buying it from Walmart. It was just a bad time. So let's compare. With Walmart, props to them. I only had 2 scrolls to be disappointed. Target, I had to scroll 3 times. That's appalling. The other thing that's worth noting is that Target tried to sell me insurance for the thing that they're sold out of, and I'm like, what? No, just let me get on a wait list. I don't care about the insurance. I just want the thing. The other really missed opportunity here is that there was no way for me to get in touch. So I'm reliant on Reddit, I'm reliant on Twitter, not the actual vendor to find out when they're in stock. So it's a fail trifecta. There was no wait list. It was a bad experience. So I actually have, since that really bad experience, I have not bought a single thing off of Target or Walmart, the website. And all the qualifying information was buried beneath 2 or 3 scrolls. So you want to make sure that if you're going to disappoint early so that people don't get mad. When they get mad, they then hold a grudge and then they don't buy from you ever again. If they're like just slightly disappointed, then they might forgive you and come back. So all of this is to say, craft winning mobile experiences that are wonderful. Don't fall short on mobile just because you think that it's a volume game. Like you really do need to make sure that it's solid. So you've earned the email, you've earned the phone number, use it. So I will give another props to Lumi. They paced out their emails really, really well. They let me know that the product was coming. They let me know at around the time when the product should have run out that I was due for an upgrade. So it's like, good on you. The other thing that you'll want to do with emails is prospect with guardrails. So those similar audiences I was talking to you about before, you can use those to target exclusively on Google, on Microsoft, on Facebook and Instagram. Definitely be empowered to do so. You also want to make sure that you're using your audience managers across the board, whether it's Microsoft, whether it's Google, whether it's Facebook, to tell you about the market opportunity. So, and I need to give big props to Microsoft here. When you use Microsoft's audience manager, not only will they tell you what is the audience, like how many people can you expect, they'll also tell you what is the percentage of the general population of the Microsoft audience in the country that you're looking at that your group represents. So if, say, for example, little old me looking for a PS5, if they were clever, they could have looked to see like how many of little old me's were there to go target, or they could say, oh, not worth it, I'm going to go focus on some other vertical. And so you're able to just get a sense of is this a market worth going after? Is there enough interest here for search? Or do I need to maybe cultivate that interest with the audience network, with display, with YouTube, so on and so forth? I know that Facebook killed their organic audience insights. Yes, I know that sucks. You still are able to get a sense of it when you're advertising. So you do not have to pay a cent to actually run anything in the ad platforms. Definitely be empowered to use the ad platform's audience insights, and just don't put any money in to get those insights. Yes, they're gated behind those platforms, but like you still can use them. The other thing that's really important is to cross-channel message and to make sure that you're getting proper attribution through UTMs. UTMs at this point are mandatory. However, sites like HubSpot, your Google Analytics can actually auto tag your spots with UTMs. It's also really useful to take the audiences that are, say, exclusively on Microsoft and plant them into Google, and to also understand which ad channel is your best kind of conversation starter and who is your closer. You might go in with certain assumptions, and the data can prove that you're right or that you're wrong. And then finally, you can save your customers from your competitors. So we all cry foul when people bid on our terms, and it's all really tragic. This is a way to actually ethically do it. So if you have your list of existing customers and they are searching for your competitors, you can remind them about your value when they are searching specifically for your competitor. And you can actually have those really specific points of differentiation. So I definitely recommend, if you've been kind of gun shy about using a competitor campaign or a branded campaign, this is a very powerful way to make sure that it's targeted, but also that you can feel good about doing it. And with that, I thank you very, very much. And I'm excited to take any and all questions.
I just saw a comment from Steve that we have some folks in chat saying they're not seeing your presentation, which is odd because both Steve and I do. But we haven't gotten any questions in yet. So I'll feed a couple comments. That's some awesome stuff. PPC, paid has never been my game. I've been for years been sending any clients that needed paid to Steve, and so a lot of this is over my head, and I'm very happy to let it stay over my head. But you explain it beautifully, and it's frankly it's a little bit surprising to me. There's better data there to really base some decision, particularly on the creative side, than I had been giving thought to.
So my best advice I can give to SEOs in the room: don't spend $1 on PPC, but create the free accounts on Google, create the free accounts on Facebook, create the free accounts on Microsoft, like do all of the free ad accounts and play with the toys that we PPCs get. Because I mean, you don't need to pay anything to use the audience insights, or just see what their intel looks like.
Yeah.
Well, for those of you that did not get to see the presentation, I will be uploading it and sharing it out. So hopefully you will see it then.
Yeah, it will be available, definitely be available for view on demand after the fact.
This now, oh, go ahead.
We have a question from Tracy Ingram. If you've got any tips on how to get your clients to increase their ad budget.
Yes, impression share. On the search side, if your impression share is lost due to rank or to budget, that's typically a sign that you're asking a budget to be spread too thin, or you're forcing yourself to underbid because you've set a budget, but the keyword concepts are too expensive, or the CPA isn't realistic, and so you're underbidding. So impression share is a very powerful one. The other equation I will walk all clients through is what are your customers worth? How many net new customers can you get in a week or in a month, and where could that number grow to without any operational change? And what is your overall conversion rate from someone coming to you as a lead or a sale to actually being a purchase. And 9 times out of 10, the budget that was picked for PPC or for SEO or for any marketing initiative was created in a silo and then imposed on all the various marketing channels, when in fact you want to make sure that it's a collaborative conversation. So if clients are saying, I want to spend $1,000 a month, I would say, okay, we're not doing Google search. You do not get to do Google search. We are going to do display. We might do some Facebook. We might do Microsoft, but we are not doing Google search. That's the caveat to that, is that if they're local, I would 1,000% do local service ads with them. If someone comes to me and says, I need to get 100 leads in a month for this to be a profitable endeavor, I would then go through the equations with them and show, here are the various auction prices. Here's what's realistic. Let's pick one market to test, make sure that we have it proven out, and then we scale.
Okay. Yeah, and to me, I think too, I would add to that, whether it be paid or organic, we all know that setting expectations is critical. And I have worked on campaigns where the client also had somebody working paid, working nicely in conjunction with them, getting things, get them some quick results through the paid while the SEO is getting some footing, and making them understand that taking action over here may cause a downtick over there. So they expect that. Because
this is important also when it comes to paid. Not enough people understand and account for the learning period and how tumultuous that learning period is.
Yeah.
If you start off with a small budget, your learning period will be longer. And if you make any major changes to budget, if you make any major changes to objective, if you make any major changes to create, like any major change, you are resetting that learning period.
Yeah.
So I find the bigger battle is getting clients to chill and be like, let's not touch it. Let's let the data work. And my favorite comparison is we're cooking a steak. If you keep turning it up around and around, you keep poking it, you're going to end up with shoe leather. If you let it sit, you let it rest, let it marinate, you have a beautiful prime experience.
Well, of course, the other side of that is lovely too, when they don't quite like the results they're seeing right now, and they say, well, we want to change this and this and this and this and this, and they want to change 5 things at once, then you're expected to be able to tell them why it went up or down.
So shameless plug for my Ask the PPC article being published next Monday, but on split testing. There are rules of engagement when it comes to split testing. If you are going to have a test, you want to make maybe 1, possibly 2 variables in the quarter, ideally 1, but like sometimes you gotta hold them back, so it's a compromise. But you also want to make sure that you're being kind to yourself in terms of statistical significance. So if you're a brand that's never going to get more than 1,000 sessions in a month, you don't need to really wait for the 10,000. Like, get the, say, 1,000 to 5,000 and make a decision where it maybe is a month to 2 months of waiting, but then you have a decision. Whereas if you're the kind of site that gets 1 million uniques in a day, yeah, like you probably can test something for a week and then you have something approaching a reasonable test, but you still should wait ideally a month.
Well, great presentation. Now, we really appreciate your time. As I said before, we understand for all of you folks that putting something like this together is not something you do over lunch. It takes hours and hours of prep and thought, and we really appreciate it. And presentations like yours is what helps make a conference. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.